This is Support is Sexy, episode 357, with Claire Wasserman, founder of Ladies Get Paid. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And today I'm excited to welcome our guest, Claire Wasserman. And Claire is the founder of a company called Ladies Get Paid. Now, not only do we love Claire because she is helping us get equal pay for equal work, really being a champion for women knowing how to negotiate so that they can get equal pay, but also educating companies and other people who work with women, hire women, and all of those things to know the importance and really the financial benefits for them as well as for women of making sure that there is equal pay for equal work. Now, on this episode, what I also love is that Claire talks about how Ladies Get Paid came to be, not just as a brilliant idea, which it is, but also the fact that she was really moved, or as she says, she couldn't not do it. Have you ever felt that like an entrepreneur? You have an idea or the idea for your business overall, and you just couldn't not do it. I totally got it when she said that. So what you'll hear from Claire in this episode is how to sense when you're onto something in your business, the role self-awareness plays in knowing when it's time to take that leap, what Claire learned from her previous startup failures, how therapy helped her in her business. I'm all about therapy. I always say it's all about having the conversations that you're probably having in your head anyway. Claire also tells us how to host an engaging event and build a passionate community, which she has definitely done with Ladies Get Paid. Also, what most people and companies don't realize about the effects of unequal pay for women. Claire's 3 tips for getting paid what you're worth, and her top tips on how to negotiate like a boss. So I know you're going to enjoy this episode full of great tips and information, as always. So now, without further ado, Claire Wasserman. So Claire, thank you so much for being here for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
I am so excited to talk to you, and I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you. Yay. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, which is probably not very unique of me to say. I imagine a lot of other entrepreneurs, when they look back at their childhood, it's like, yep, that's me doing it my own way and trying to make money. I think I just haven't loved having a boss. So I wouldn't say so much that I fell in love with entrepreneurism as it was looking at, working for somebody else and realizing I think I'd rather make my own mistakes than work under somebody else's mistakes. Without going into too much detail, I sort of rebelled against working for other people. And that's in large parts what motivated me to be an entrepreneur.
Now, did you try working for other people for a while and then realize that, or was it something that you just always knew that you were going to go this direction?
So I worked for other people for a couple of years, but every job that I've had, they actually allowed me to create my own job, essentially. So I was always working independently, almost like it was almost like an incubator, really. I had my initiative. I, got them to give me budget, which I had to defend. And if I ran out of resources, that would be on me. So I was, I guess, practicing to be an entrepreneur under other people, but at some point you are within their organization.
An entrepreneur, as they call it now.
Yeah.
That's the sexy language for it now.
Yeah. So that's really what I was.
Mm-hmm. Now tell us your background and where you grew up.
Ooh, complicated answer. I technically grew up in New York, but we moved away when I was 9. But, growing up in New York, you're basically an adult by age 9. So.
Right, exactly. You're taking the train by yourself. You're basically driving. You're doing everything.
Yeah. Well, except for the driving part, because I've lived in New York so long, I don't really know how to drive.
Oh, right. There's that.
Taxis, but then we moved to Los Angeles and then Washington, D.C. So it's funny, in each of the cities I've lived in, I had wanted to be whatever was kind of the predominant industry. So, of course, being in LA, I wanted to be an actress. Being in DC, I wanted to be in politics. And then I knew New York would be my end-all city. I moved back here in 2009 because I could be whatever I wanted to be in New York.
It wasn't one particular thing.
No, and so much of who I am and what I do has come from the network that I've built. And to me, that's the reason to live in New York is there are opportunities everywhere. And I've met amazing people, on the bus, at bars, just running into people, and relationships have grown from that. And somehow speaking of riding the subway, I still love riding the subway, which is why I definitely know that New York's the city for me.
Right. So. New York is one of those cities. I'm from there too. And one of the things I love about it, it's a city where you can be on your own and no one will bother you if you want to, even though obviously there's millions of people there. Or it's the city where you can run into people at every corner. It just depends on what you want your awareness to be that day. That's what I feel like.
Yeah. And so much of my career before I started Ladies Get Paid was working for companies whose really the purpose of those companies were to be networks. One was an online professional network, and the other one was called the Art Directors Club. And that's a nonprofit that helps connect people in visual communications. So, for almost 5 years, it was my job to kind of know everybody, more specific to the advertising design world. But I was sitting at this intersection of, employers and then them hiring talent. So I got to kind of tap into a lot of different worlds. And in that, I built a huge network for myself, which was definitely helpful in starting my own business. I had people I could market to. Who
do you think were some of your greatest influences growing up, especially as you went from city to city, all major cities? But who were some of your greatest influences during that time?
My goodness. Yeah, I mean, definitely my mom. It's strange. I don't really look like her, but in public speaking, I feel like her. I sort of catch myself in these moments where I'm like, this is a hand gesture my mom would make. She's a great public speaker. I was a big theater kid. So I think my biggest influences were the directors, playwrights that, we were performing their plays. It was the whole world of theater that was my biggest inspiration. And a lot of what I do is public speaking, and that in large part feels like a performance, and you engage the audience and you respond to their energy. And, so I in a way kind of bring together what I had wanted to be, which was politics and acting. So it's been fun to look back at my childhood and the people who've influenced me and to say it totally makes sense for what I'm doing now. The path made sense, even though it didn't feel like it at the time.
Exactly. I was going to say the exact same thing. When you're going through it, you're not quite sure. You feel like you're on to something. You might, or sometimes you don't know what's going on. But then when you have those moments when you can look back and say, now it all makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah. So then when was the moment that it made sense for you to start Ladies Get Paid? You were working in these other organizations, as you said. It was all about connecting and that kind of thing. But when did it become your desire to say, I'm going to start this?
Yeah, a bit accidental. So I knew that I was pretty frustrated around the wage gap, women, not seeing enough women in leadership positions, experiences in my own life of misogyny, some blatant, some what we now know as, quote, microaggressions. No idea what I would do about it, had no intention of creating a business, really liked what I was doing before, so wasn't looking to quit. But a friend of mine came to me and she said, I'm an art director, freelance art director. I just realized that I'm not getting paid as much as my male counterparts, but more because I actually didn't know how much to charge. And I think it would be worth having some kind of event where we just ask women to talk about it. So she was the inspiration for doing my first event, which was a town hall called Women and Money. I wanted it to be a relatively open forum where people were bringing their stories, speaking up whatever they wanted to talk about as long as it related to money. And, out of that first town hall, it was obviously very clear that this was way more than money. We were talking essentially about self-worth and value. Did people value themselves? Were they advocating for their value at work? Were they being transparent about how much money they were making? The stigma, huge conversation. Went home that night. Again, no intention of not only creating a business, but no intention of doing another event. That wasn't something I, went into the first event anticipating. But what I did do was I created a Slack group. I guess for those of you who aren't familiar with Slack, it's an internal communications tool. So it's supposed to be for companies to get their employees to talk to each other, almost like an instant message rather than sending an email. And we were using it at my company, and I just immediately saw that it could be essentially like repurposed for community building. And it's a freemium model. So obviously I did the free version. And for everybody who went to that first town hall, I said, listen, guys, I'm not planning on doing another one for right now. But in the meantime, sign up for this Slack group. There are different channels. I themed the channels based on kind of like the predominant themes of the evening. So a lot of people were talking about salary negotiation, for example. So that was a channel. I made an introductions channel. I made a resource channel. And within a week, I mean, the engagement of people on that Slack channel, it was unreal. It was like the business was right in front of me, right? I saw what people wanted to talk about. I saw where their anxieties were. I saw that they could help each other, but I also saw where they needed guidance. And it was like, you know what? This can be a career development service where we continue to do events where people speak up about their frustrations, but then we have instructors who try to address those challenges, and it can be a 50-50 profit split. So I quit my job.
Wow.
After. And part of that was because New York Magazine wrote about that first town hall. So I was seeing that there was press, I was seeing there was community, and I knew what the business model would be. And I knew I was the right person to do this based on my passion and all of my experiences leading up to this. And I had the right skill set and I had the network. So, and I have I'm nothing a fear gene. It's kind of crazy. I really don't get too worried about, I guess, failure. I know that everything can be, let's say this failed, quote, failed, right? I could get another job and this would be a fabulous story to tell. This would be a great learning experience. It would make me incredibly hireable. So it was sort of like, what do I have to lose? And I always acknowledge my privilege in this. You know, I'm somebody who had no more student debt. I have no health problems. I don't have dependents. So because I have that privilege, I really feel the responsibility that if anyone were to do this, it would be me, and it would be sort of a travesty if I didn't. You know, if somebody's in the position to take the leap, then you should, if you're in service to others. And this really, I saw how helpful this could be. So a year change later, still doing it. So
wow, that's amazing, Claire. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, especially the entire formation of it, just not even just how you did it, but also what you were feeling in those moments as you did it. Because those, I think, would be a lot of the questions that people have. How did you know you were the right person? How did you not have the fears? And you addressed all of that. So that's amazing. And also
therapy, I have to mention, because all of this is knowing yourself,
right,
as much as knowing the market. So if you see what your strengths are, so again, long story short here, it's because I really, really, really knew myself. And I had, I didn't mention before, I had spent a few years ago on my own trying to do another startup. So I'd had practice at failing because that one didn't work out. So I was less worried about this one because I knew what I didn't know before and had gained the knowledge I needed at my last company. So I was ready to take the leap again.
But it's interesting that, two things, but one, it's interesting that you had the previous company, whatever happened with it and it failed, but you weren't, it doesn't sound like you were at all gun shy about going into this next thing, where some people who might be listening may be in the space just after a failure of a business or an idea or whatever it is, and you feel a little nervous about jumping into that next thing. Whereas you seem like a person who clearly takes inspired action when you sort of see the signs. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of, I'm not sure I'm sure, I mean, you're human, of course, but I mean, it does sound like you respond when you see that there's a need and that you could, yes, and a possibility. I think you mentioned, which is fair to mention, your privilege in this case with not having children and that kind of thing, but also that you saw the possibility and you went for it.
Yep, I saw the possibility, and again, I knew what I'd had to learn from the failure of the other one. I learned it at this last job. So, it's always a combination of sort of strategy, the timing, if you've done enough due diligence on your own personality. And I also always ask people, what's your anxiety, right? Are you more anxious not making that much money, or are you actually more anxious working for somebody else or whatever situation you're in? Is your job toxic, right? Does that cause you more agita than possibly going out on your own and the risks associated with it? And I decided I would have more agita staying at my job. And also, it's never how much you make. It's always about how much you spend. Mm-hmm. So I downsized. I got a subletter for my apartment. I've lived month to month with friends, but I'm okay with making those sacrifices for what I'm doing. But I'm aware of those sacrifices and I contain them. And I know at some point when I get too anxious about them, I'll make another change in my life. So I also still have a freelance job. I haven't quit my freelance gig. Mm-hmm. So that's something I want to, and I actually could if I wanted, but I think I'd be too nervous. So even though math-wise, I definitely could, I know that my anxiety would be too high if I did.
Right.
So I always want to mention, like, examine your own anxiety and question if it's really logical or not.
And I love don't pretend. It sounds like let me know if this would be your advice too, based on what you said. Don't pretend that your anxieties don't exist. It's just deciding what your greatest anxiety is, and then how you can address that. Some of it, because some of us think this no fear, don't worry about anything, that kind of thing, which isn't always right. And you live in New York, so there's always something as far as money and making sure that everything is okay. You're not living in a where you're living off the land, basically. Right.
Right.
So tell us, if you don't mind, a little bit about your previous company, the one you said was the one before this one, or the one you failed as far as the startup, but more so not even just about the company. I more so would love to know what you feel like you learned, a couple of things you learned from that business that you've carried over into this one.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So this company, gosh, it's sort of funny because it's a bit similar to what I'm doing now, although not gender-based or gender-specific. So I wanted to create almost like do you remember Ask Jeeves? I don't know if that still exists. I think it's ask.com now.
Yeah.
It's like a Google. It's like a Google.
Before Google was, right.
Yeah. So I wanted to basically do that for careers. So you would ask a question about it was like people trying to figure out their career path. But what you would get was these little mini videos. So I was going around filming all of these people whose careers I admired, and I would make them into these tiny clips. So like 60-second, 30-second clips. So whatever question you asked, all these videos would be tagged. So you would get a bunch of different, basically different career paths and answers, but they'd all be responding to your question. So if it was talking about failure, let's say, you would have these like 50 different clips that all had like a moment of them talking about failure. So it was trying to see almost like pragmatic and emotional themes in people's careers. And long story short, it was a bit of a mess, right? So it was a great kind of like kernel of an idea. The thing that I learned was I had no idea how to make decisions. Basically, I had no confidence in my decision making. I felt like if I hadn't done something before, I was too nervous to make a decision. So I would say, let's do the thing. And then a few weeks later, ooh, you know what? Actually, let's not do that. So I was driving my team nuts. And I think actually that's quite a female thing, is we feel like we have to have like done a thing before or proven our worth before we believe in our worth.
Right. Whereas men feel like I'll learn it as I go. Most
exactly.
Men. Yeah. They don't worry about the knowledge gap.
And also assuming that everybody else knows what they're doing.
Right.
It's like,
nobody knows.
Do a start. Yeah. You were all making it up. And so I don't think I believed in myself enough. I kept trying to say, well, I haven't done it before. Well, that's not the point. Do you believe in yourself? And clearly I didn't. I'd also never really worked for a startup before. So I knew that my next job was, I wanted to, work for somebody and watch them make their decisions and grow their business. And what is it like to hire people and pay them? And there was just so much I had to learn. And I just felt like it's too expensive to make these mistakes on my own. I'd rather make them I'd rather be paid. Basically, I was paid by a startup, which was me going to business school.
Right.
And then I graduated business school, and then it was time for me.
I wanted to mention too, you mentioned a little bit about therapy being a part of your journey and helping you get to the point where now you feel more confident about who you are, not even just as a businesswoman, but as a woman. Is that something that you did prior to launching Ladies Get Paid? Is it something that you did while you've had the business, or what point did that come into your journey and how did that help you?
Yes. So that's something I started in college, and I've gone for years on and off. And I started it the year before I started up again, the year before I created Ladies Get Paid. And I definitely I think I would not have been able to start my own company if I hadn't done all of that work in understanding who I am, where I thrive, my weaknesses, my strengths. I really give that credit. So full year before I started Ladies Get Paid, although again, on and off beforehand.
Do you think it also helped you? Because I've been to therapy too and find it I always say it allows you to talk about the things you're thinking about anyway. So I don't know why people have stigma around it sometimes. But what do you think as far as how it helps you in being able to, it sounds like really, be able to evaluate what these women needed once you were in that town hall? Because from the sound of it, it sounded like you had one idea for the town hall, but then it sort of evolved into something else in that moment, and that's when you really began to see the need. Were you able to tap into something in each woman there?
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also just such an emotional person anyway, and I'm personally more interested in, I don't like small talk. So if you're going to have an instant deep connection with somebody, it's probably going to be on some kind of energy, emotional level. I mean, people don't really remember what you say, but it's how you make them feel. Mm-hmm. So I knew the environment I wanted to create in these town halls would make people be very comfortable and open to opening up. We put the chairs in a semicircle, almost a circle, so that people are looking at each other and they see that they're nodding, right? They're not the only ones. The energy gets contained within the circle. So I always knew that I would set up the room to help people feel comfortable. And then what I saw that they were talking about was, oh my gosh, they had never been given the opportunity or the space to open up in this way before. And so the minute one person does, that then sets the tone for the rest of the room. And before we can get to all the brass tacks, nuts and bolts of what do you say in a negotiation? It's always, well, how do you feel about negotiating? Mm-hmm. And there's a catharsis to it. And then there's a strategy part. So I really look at it from, we got to get people in the mood. They've got to feel comfortable. They've got to release their stories, their anger, their frustrations they're bringing. And now that we've done that, we're talking about, okay, what's the script? What are your numbers? So if you jump too quickly, I think, to the logistics part, that's really discounting how people feel. And that's a huge part of every day when you go to work. It's not just about what you're getting done. It's all the other emotional baggage that you're bringing with you. So, it organically happened. Now that I realize that it's happening, I can set up those environments and I can facilitate it in a way that gets them there. But I'm not, at this point, we've got town halls happening all over the country. So I've taught these other women who now run them how I do it. So there's a structure to it, but, the structure allows it to be spontaneous, and the room wants what the room wants. If this is a group of women who don't feel like speaking up a lot or getting emotional, why would you force it? They'll do it if they want to do it.
Right. I love that. The room wants what the room wants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us then, what do you feel like today is the primary mission of Ladies Get Paid? And then how does it work? You mentioned you have town halls all around the country now. So how did it evolve from that first one to where it is now?
Yeah, great question. So the mission, even before I knew there was a mission, has really been the same, which is to help women rise up at work, help women advocate for themselves at work. So the way that we're doing it is by giving them tools and support. The tools part are workshops and town halls. The support part comes from the online community we have. So that continues to be Slack. Those are thousands of women all over the world who are giving each other peer-to-peer advice. And the rising up at work, we're defining that largely in women becoming leaders in their organization, women, closing the wage gap, which can be closed by women becoming in leadership positions. And then we do some personal finance training because the best negotiators are the ones who are able to walk away from a job. Mm-hmm. And you really can't do that unless you have sort of the privilege I was talking about. So that means usually savings or another offer. So from the first town hall, a few weeks after that, I got somebody to teach a negotiation class because that was by far the thing everybody wanted to talk about and had a lot of questions about. So it's continued since then. Every town hall has a different theme, usually about something that we're experiencing that's a frustration. And we talk about it in terms of our frustration. And then the class is where we're, again, trying to solve it. And it's really kind of been the same since the beginning. It hasn't evolved too much. I think what we've done is actually narrow it down a little bit more. The focus is clear. And it's something that we've added recently as a conference. And that's what we did last month. And it went so well. We're going to do it 6 more times this year because we are totally unambitious.
6
very
more
unambitious.
times. A conference 6 more times.
Different cities. Yeah,
wow.
Different cities. And yeah. So again, it's not that we're necessarily adding or evolving. We're just focusing and we've never charged for membership. I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Is it do people pay for the town halls, or how does it work as far as your business, the structure of the business?
Yeah, so free to join, and then we do charge for town halls and classes and the conference. Everything's a very nominal fee. And then what we're hoping to do is actually create a directory of women's businesses, since that would really be in line with our, ladies get paid, literally, let's get them paid. And so because we've built such a big network, we may end up charging to be listed, or some kind of affiliate program where if you get referrals through us, then we take a portion of it. We've played around with charging, for job postings, things like that. But I would rather have tons and tons of people in the community all paying a little bit of an amount for value, than like making this cost prohibitive in any way for somebody. Which means I've had to be patient. The first year was really community building year. And this year, I should also mention, we have brand partnerships, and we work with companies. So a company will pay me money to go in and teach a course. A brand will pay us money to throw a happy hour. We're their part of the happy hour. So that is fantastic because they have the budget, and it makes it so that we don't have to charge our members that much for things.
Right.
So
I was going to ask if the town halls, if any companies would sponsor the town halls also. Even if you don't have to talk about the company there, but presented by so and so.
Yep, and the great so what's really great about teaming up with us is that a company that gets involved with us is both marketing what it is they're selling. They also are able to possibly hire people, right? So there's both they have the demographic they're looking for, but most of these companies are hiring and they want to hire really talented women. So there's a double reason for them to team up with us. But, the first year I had to actually have a network. Right. So we were very patient with focusing on growing the community and not trying to monetize it too quickly. But we knew there was a path to monetization. So I always urge other entrepreneurs, if it's not that you monetize from day one, but if you don't even know how you're going to monetize, that's scary. You should probably have that in mind, even if it evolves.
Right. And it usually does evolve.
So I thank God we're in the money making part of our business now, because lady was not getting paid in the beginning. I'm telling you.
Right.
People were getting jobs through us. I was glad for you.
Right. Exactly. That's good for you. What about us? I love it. Now for your for people signing up, I'm on your site now. I see partner with us. It's a wait list. Is it a wait list for people to sign up to be a part of the membership? Or how?
Interesting that you took it that way. Well, then I should get some feedback from you, because it's definitely not a wait list. Open everybody. The partner part is for companies who want to bring us in to teach classes or develop programming.
Okay.
Or for brands that want to, like I said, kind of piggyback off of our current programming. No, there's no wait list for anything. The more the merrier.
Okay. So I'll make sure, of course, I'll have links to everything. I'm sure people listening or will be interested in finding out more. And I see so for the conference I was looking at, you said you're doing, is it 6 times next year, 2018?
Yep. It'll start in March, early March, I believe March 3rd in Seattle.
Okay.
So right now the cities are going to be Seattle, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, and then ending up in New York on the 1-year anniversary of our first conference. And we're hoping to make that one more of a summit, with the other town halls are going to be, other conferences will be about 150 people. And then the last one, we'd love it to be in the multiple of hundreds.
Wow.
So,
awesome.
yeah.
All right.
Again, very unambitious.
Right, exactly. Low key, totally. So I'll make sure I'll get from you just links for people to find out about those specific things if I don't find it just on your website. But that all sounds amazing. Now, one question I did have about the events themselves. How do you decide? We talked a little bit about the structure for it, but how do you decide what your topics are going to be in each one going forward? Do you stick to specifically what you said the organization is about at this point, or how do you know in each place? And I'm asking for people who are thinking about or who are already hosting different kinds of events, whether that's a brunch or a conference. Sure. How do you come up with those ideas?
Yeah. So I first started with looking at, in my own work life, what were all the things that I'd been frustrated by or had faced challenges in. So that goes back to my theme of think with your emotions first, because chances are other people are experiencing it. And then this will be a thing that's I need to go to it rather than a nice to have. If you're addressing what somebody is worried about, it's going to resonate a lot more with them than it would be good for me to go to this. So I made a list of all the things that I had been frustrated by in the workplace. And so again, how I began, but with the Slack group, I'm lucky to see what people are talking about. We also ask when you sign up, what are the things that you have questions about that we can possibly help you with? And so there have been patterns that have emerged. So we then create themes around those. So it's worked really well. I wouldn't say that there's one topic that's more popular than another, although in terms of the education, again, for sure, the negotiating one. Just ask people when they're, signing up for things, what else do you want us to see? Or in this topic, are there things you specifically want us to cover? So you just ask people. Yeah. But you think about your
community too.
Totally paying attention to the community. I mean, for those who don't yet have a community, you don't have any real data to go off of, but presumably you started your business or initiative because you had that need. So really, again, look back in your life. What are the things that you have concerns about or questions about? Chances are somebody else will have it too. And then you can create programming off of that.
And do you find right now, it sounds like that Slack is your preferred platform, whereas a lot of people are using Slack as well, but other people are using Facebook groups and those kinds of things. Has Slack been the one that you think so far works really well for you guys? Or are you looking at other things?
No, that's totally we have a Facebook group, but that's just to post articles we come across or like updates and invites. Our entire community is based on Slack. Yeah, for sure. It's organized, right? Like you have all these different channels. So you just jump in there, there's a search, you can see, put in your keyword, you can find other people talking about it. Whereas with Facebook, it's just that infinite feed. So you'd have to scroll down so much and it's a lot. So I'm a huge believer in Slack. I mean, I know a lot of people have fatigue around it because they're in so many different Slack groups. But do you really think they're in more Slack groups than they are Facebook groups? Right. Probably not. I know. So, they're going to have fatigue, but also if they need it, they're going to jump in there and use it.
The number of Facebook, sometimes I have to do like a purge. Not, I love the Facebook groups I'm in, but sometimes you just look like, how did I even get in this group? It's so many at this point.
Right. No, so fortunately, this is bringing value to people. And a lot of people do say that they don't, they won't necessarily participate in it, but they'll read it. They're getting a lot of value just by like looking what people are asking, and they don't need to ask it because somebody else is. So that's been really good to hear that they'll still be a part of it and not feel overwhelmed by it because they're just scrolling through and getting stuff.
Another question just about structure of the business. Do you advise other women listening who are thinking about setting up their companies or organizations, et cetera, to look at the smart ways as you have that you can provide value or free content, and then obviously have a paid component of your business so that it's not an all or nothing on either side? And I say that because sometimes we do just give away everything, don't think about the money piece, which, as you said, got to think about that if you want a business. But then on the other side, sometimes we just charge for everything and don't think about, well, how am I adding value?
Yeah, I mean, now we're going to introduce a membership fee where if you do want to pay yearly, there is a lot of value out of it because we have so many workshops, town halls, the conference now, to give a discount on those things. It is worth it.
An annual fee.
Yeah. So it is financially worth it. Obviously, we needed to have created those things first for it to be worth it for anybody. And then we have a bunch of other things that I believe are going to be of value to people. And honestly, I resisted having any kind of paid membership, but I had enough people in my community tell me I should do it. And the reason they said it was a good idea was they said, quite frankly, I'll feel more a part of your organization if I'm paying for it. I was like, ooh, interesting. And that, they would have their own private Slack channel within the larger one. And to be around people who are incredibly committed in this way to this cause, it'll be better networking for them. So it'll be an experiment. I mean, everything you do in a business is an experiment. And the key is to, communicate it in the right way and learn very quick, listen and then learn very quickly. So I'm nervous about this, but again, everybody in my world said I should do this. So it's going to
be great. It's going to be great. I already know it.
I'll tell them you said it was a great.
Yes, exactly. Just put that in the Slack chat. It'll be great. Actually, I think I'm in the. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be great.
My hype woman. I appreciate it.
Now, how many people do you have in the company at this point working for supporting you?
Ooh, I love that you asked this because last week I made my first offer to my first employee. Well, I have a partner now, so I did this by myself for about 9 months, and then I brought on a partner, and so we've been doing it just us. I have people I collaborate with, but we both just made our first offer to somebody last week for a part-time position that will then hopefully by mid-March turn into a full-time.
Awesome.
So
Congratulations.
yeah,
That's a big deal.
business.
Yeah, exactly. I hired someone.
I know, and it was really easy to do because she was our, we have ambassadors. So these are women who are part of a committee in various cities, and they're responsible for putting on our programming. And the whole thing's a profit share. So that's another part of our model, which has allowed me to grow fast. Is I don't just like give the money. It's, hey, if you can get 150 people to come to an event, and you're charging $15 each, you take a cut of it. And so it incentivizes them, and it protects my finances from paying more than I can afford. She is in Seattle, is so phenomenal, has proven herself time and time again with the work she's been doing on that committee. So I'm fortunate in that I have a community where people can participate. So I'm not taking a big leap to hire her, right? Like, she proved herself. So now I have the money to pay her and in a more official capacity. But I'm not nervous because she's proven herself.
That's awesome. Now tell us about the decision to bring in a partner. How did you come to that point, and why was that important for you at the time you decided to do that?
Yeah. So I joked with her that I was just really lonely. And that is actually a part of it. I think any entrepreneur, we tend to share that, or just can be really lonely. She was similar to this woman where she had been doing the work. I hired her for business development, and she had for months been connecting me to companies who wanted to partner with me. She'd been sending out these emails to her network saying, you should join Ladies Get Paid. Is anybody working for a company that can help Claire? So, and she also had a very impressive job before. So she had all the credentials, and I needed that kind of person to be on board with me. I just got to a point where I was like, we are not going to grow, not only because of my lack of hours, but my weaknesses at some point are going to cripple the growth of this company. So my strengths got us here to the 9-month mark. It's just going to stay. It's going to stagnate if I don't get somebody on board who has the other skill sets that this company needs. And again, she'd been coming to all the town halls, had been doing all the work already. And the key was she wasn't happy at her job. So it was like, hey, you're in a place where you might be looking for work in the near future. What about me?
Right.
That was an easy decision for her to say yes, which is great.
And I love that you talked about you got yourself to the 9-month mark, and then you knew you wanted to get someone to additionally to help you move forward. Whereas some of us, sometimes it may feel like out of necessity if you don't have the money to do it or et cetera. But a lot of times it is a matter of looking around and saying, okay, where can I bring someone in, whether that's a partner or a support or something to help me move forward? Because what got you to this point, right, isn't necessarily going to get you to the next level.
Right. No, exactly. And really it was going to be my weaknesses. I'm relieved. She has really changed the business. And again, it's fun. My God, I have somebody to talk to every day.
Right. It's not all in your head. I know that feeling. So let's talk a little bit about equal pay then. What do you feel most people, men and women, still don't realize about equal pay and how it affects us as women, even beyond the workforce?
Yeah, I think people totally disregard how much women of color are not making. Because I ask the same question at every town hall that I do, which is, how much do y'all think the wage gap is? And everybody usually says 78 cents to the dollar. And my response is, if you're white, if you're Hispanic, it's 55 cents to the dollar. And most people are like, oh. And I'm like, exactly. Our progress, we have only gone so far as the people who are still struggling the most among us. So you may be feeling fine in your career, but now knowing that Hispanic women are making that little amount, would you not do something about that? Right? So there's this education that's happening there. And the other thing that people don't realize is what a missed economic opportunity we have. Not only, if you close the wage gap, we would make so much money in the, annual GDP, but the lack of investment that we give to women also, right? So women of color are making, it's like $44 billion a year in revenue. And I think they're one of the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs in the US. Yep. Only about 2% are getting funded by VCs. And it's at an average of $36,000 a year in terms of their investment. Well, who wants to get rich? right? You should invest in women of color.
Right, exactly.
So,
it all makes sense and by statistics, but for some reason it hasn't shifted yet. But you're working on that.
Yeah. So part of it is, okay, this is egregious from an ethical standpoint. And then the other part is, wow, we could really, we could make some money. All of us could make some money. It's not just a female issue. It's proven that companies do better when you have diversity in leadership. So part of what I do is giving everybody the language that they can use to make the case to their bosses about why equal pay and diversity is crucial to the bottom line. They just need the evidence, they need the statistics, and they need the language to make the case.
Now, when you go and speak to companies about equal pay and the other things that you bring around ladies get paid to organizations, do you find that bigger companies are responsive, or that they're finding out information they don't already know, or are they finding out how to implement some of these things into their businesses?
They're at the point where they need to implement. There's been so much, this is so topical, and we've been hearing for a while now that this needs to change. I find that there's very few articles out there that tell you how to change. We just know that, we know that sexual harassment is happening. Okay, what do you do about it? Literally, what do you do? And what can your company, in whatever context your company has, the size of it, okay, what can a company with your size of number of employees, what can you do? So they're coming to us. Usually it's somebody on staff there who already is a part of our community, and they advocate. They go, wow, this was amazing. I went to this workshop. Can we bring them in? And a lot of times it's us working with their women's group there. A lot of these companies already have budget associated with their women's group. They just need help. They just don't have anybody on staff who is thinking about this all the time. So we're almost like an extension of their HR, talent recruitment, women's group. And so again, part of it's that they don't know what to do, but also they know that by partnering with us, they're getting exposure to people they can hire as well. Because we'll market them. We'll say, hey, this company's doing a great job. They're putting their money where their mouth is. And that makes other people in our community take note and think maybe they're a good place to work. Right. So it's sort of also good PR for them. You can't say that that's not helping.
What would you say are 3 tips for women listening for how to get paid what they're worth?
Negotiation. I think that's honestly the only way that us as individuals can try to close the wage gap. The wage gap is so systemic and so related to things that are just way bigger than us. So if you want to do anything about it, make sure that you're getting paid market rate. And so we teach a whole class about that. Other than that, start talking to your friends and not just your girlfriends. Start normalizing the conversation around money. A thing to remember about that is we're all awkward and anxious about money. So if you know that everybody shares your concerns about it, doesn't that make you feel a little bit better? And by you asking questions about money, it now gives them sort of the permission to do that too. So you're helping them by normalizing the conversation. And then look into some of the laws. See if you can participate in advocating for laws. So the best one, I think, to look at right now are these salary history bans that are starting to go into effect. So this is a law that says you as an employer cannot ask somebody that you're interviewing what they made at a previous job. Oh. Because that's been proven that it sort of unfairly punishes marginalized groups since out of college, women and women of color and people of color, they're making less money either because they don't negotiate or they're just undervalued and getting paid less. So if you're always asked how much you made before, it's just perpetuating. You'll never catch up.
Exactly, right? Because they'll always give you a slight percentage more than what you said.
So these laws, salary history ban is what it's called. New York City has passed it. The state of Massachusetts passed it. There's a number of other cities and states. And you can be a lobbying force. So, normalize the conversation around money, negotiate on your market rate, and third, do some research about where you live and if this law is going to be passed, what you can do to influence it. So those are 3 action items that, we don't have to just feel overwhelmed. You can participate in solving it, but it'll only happen if we're all doing it.
Yes, that's great information. I love that. I'm going to look up the salary history ban. That's what it's called.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make sure I link to that. What would you say is one thing that you've learned after doing all of these events and working through Ladies Get Paid about negotiation that maybe you didn't know before? If there's one thing you learned about either a strategy or about negotiating in general, what would you want to share?
Gosh, well, I'll just start with something that has surprised me about how people feel. Although when I look back at my life, it shouldn't surprise me because I feel the same way. Everyone is so worried that they're going to rescind the offer. They're really worried that they're going to rock the boat. Like this person's now not going to like them. That has a lot to do how we're socialized. That pretty much has everything to do with how we're socialized because no one's ever had their offer rescinded usually.
Right.
So a lot of this is undoing, really looking at how we've been socialized and questioning that, right? Is this a logical feeling that I have? So that's been huge. The other thing, people really need to learn how to manage their nerves, some tactics they need. And this can be used anytime that you're doing something that you're worried about, like public speaking. Information. I know I'm like responding too much to what you've asked.
No, it's great.
Everyone has questions about this, and there's not really been one thing other than I think that I'm going to damage this relationship if I try to negotiate. But the lack of information has also been astounding. People don't know how much they should be asking for, even though PayScale, Glassdoor, a lot of sites out there, but nobody feels like they know.
Because they don't do do you think because they don't do the research or they don't trust themselves of what they've learned?
I think it's a couple of things. I think they are starting to do the research, but what it's almost too much information out there, yet most of it doesn't seem like it quite fits their context because they need to be looking at what somebody with their experience at the size of the company they've applied for, in the location of the company. So there is, it's not just the number, it's the number within a context. So they first don't even realize the questions they should be asking themselves around money. There's a lot of information out there, so they don't know what to pick. And nothing is as good as asking a real live human, right? I think you would feel a lot better if somebody you knew was talking to you about this. So they're not asking people in their life, either because they're nervous or there's nobody in their circle that has the job that they're applying for. And then they don't realize, well, that shouldn't stop you. Ask that person if they can refer you to somebody else who might have that job. And if that person doesn't know, so there's some digging that you need to do. So I think people are starting to do the work, but they're not treating this enough like you're a detective building a case, which means you got to keep looking for clues, So talk to 5 people in your life, look at 5 different sites. They might just go to PayScale and say, well, that didn't work for me, so I don't know.
Right. And I think sounds like a key place where Ladies Get Paid comes in at providing that community where you can ask for other people in a position similar to yours or just strategies about negotiating and that kind of thing. So you don't feel alone.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Excellent. Let's take a quick break for a special offer from one of our partners. Do you spend a significant amount of time creating incredibly smart, valuable, and dope content for your audience, only to feel like 1 or 2 people see your work when you promote it on social media? Did you know only 5 to 10% of your followers see anything that you post? That is why I love the social media management tool, Meet Edgar. And I had a chance to chat with CEO and co-founder Laura Roeder, yes, a woman, about how Meet Edgar makes sure your work has a better chance of reaching your customer.
What he does that's really different from other tools is repurposes your content so that you can get out of that cycle of creating 5 new updates a day, every day for the rest of time, which is how a lot of small businesses are handling social media, and it's driving them insane because who has time for that? So what Edgar does is stores everything in a library and then automatically repurposes and recycles your content for you. And the reason that's a really smart idea is because 5 to 10% of your followers see any status update that you post. So why would you spend all this time coming up with content to post it once or even post it twice when such a tiny percentage of the people who follow you and want to hear from you are going to see it? So the results we see for people, you just get a lot more traffic, you get a lot more exposure, and it saves you a lot of time because once you've built up your library, Edgar's sending everything out for you. You can just go in and chat with people and do kind of the fun stuff on social.
I'm telling you, Meet Edgar has saved me a lot of time in my own business and increased my social media engagement and, more importantly, traffic to my website. Want to give it a try? Go to elainefluker.com/Meet Edgar to sign up now and use the promo code SEXY, SEXY, to get 1 month free plus $5 off your second month. That's elainefluker.com/Meet Edgar. MEETEDGAR, 1 month free plus $5 off your second month. And now back to the show. So what would you say, Claire, entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I just really believe in myself now. I believe in myself more. I mean, it's hard to say if it's my age now that I'm older or the fact that I've been an entrepreneur, but I think I'm prouder of myself being an entrepreneur than I was ever proud of myself working at another company. I think just because the buck stops with me here. So every decision I make, there's so much weight to it. And so good for me, good for me for making the decisions and sticking with it and sticking with the risk and every dollar I have to fight for. So, I guess more risk, more reward. So my just being proud of myself has been huge this year. And I would really urge anybody out there, I mean, regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or not, take time to be proud. Don't just say good job and move on. I think sometimes, for those of us who are super ambitious, we're always looking towards the future and what more we can to have, in our life and what we want to accomplish. But really, slow down for a minute and say, wow, I'm proud of myself for even just like taking the leap. I'm proud of myself for helping one person. That's success. I'm proud of myself for being patient with not trying to make money immediately. So entrepreneur has taught me to be proud of myself, I guess, keep repeating myself and saying that to you. But it's one of those things you do have to remind yourself to be proud of yourself, I think.
Exactly. We forget, especially as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, when you're first starting out, you're just so caught up in building the business, building the community and all those things. It's kind of, you have to take a moment to look around and say, okay, I have accomplished something here. I am making
as women, we tend to be really hard on ourselves and strive for this like unachievable perfection.
Exactly. So in closing, Claire, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Does Oprah count?
Oprah counts if that's your person.
Oh gosh, because I would run home from school starting in like 4th or 5th grade and just like watch her show literally every day and just like idolize her. And I think she's actually played a huge part in how I've oriented myself, how I, just so much of myself has been influenced by her. I know I feel bad not saying my parents. Sorry, Mom and Dad. They're not particularly entrepreneurial, and don't really get who I am and what I do, but have been sort of like waving from the sidelines, So
if you could thank Oprah, what would you say?
Oh gosh, I'm so cliche. It's like, thank you for being just thank you for being unequivocally you, many of us, especially as women, we try to morph ourselves into what we think somebody else needs or wants about ourselves. And especially if you don't see yourself reflected in others, right? If you're turning on the TV and there's nobody that looks like you, it's even harder to stick to who you are. And whether that's professional or in a relationship, you have to be you. And that's so much easier said than done. So she's just incredibly groundbreaking. And I just was blown away from day one when I saw her on television doing her. And clearly she's made that work,
Right. That has worked
she's
for her.
Been successful. So if you're wondering if you need to become somebody else, don't, the most successful version of you is going to be you.
That wasn't cliche at all. That was excellent.
It took me a while to get there, but yeah, I talk a lot. Thank you for indulging me.
So tell us now how we can support you. Tell everyone again, the website, social media. I'll have links to everything, but all the ways that we can get in touch with you guys.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. It's ladiesgetpaid.com. I'm very pleased that I got the URL.
Yes.
You can also follow us on social everywhere. Social media, it's just at ladiesgetpaid. At ladiesgetpaid. There's no .com when it's on social. Sign up. Yeah, it's easy. It's just putting in your information. You'll get our weekly newsletter with invitations to events. Some are online, so anybody can join. Obviously, some are in person, so that's city specific. But that's the best way to keep updated. So yeah, so easy. And I'm really appreciative to you for everything you do and giving me a chance to talk about what I love to do.
Yes, thank you so much. This was fantastic. And thank you for all that you do in creating a company like this that is really about, as much as about business, but about empowering women in ways that we all just sort of fumble through occasionally until we get confident in the way that we need to in negotiating for ourselves. So thank you for the work that you do as well.
Thank you. I couldn't not do it. I think also for entrepreneurs, if you can't stop thinking about a thing, so it's not a question of like, ooh, why did you want to do it? It was, well, I couldn't not do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So it's like, thanks for thanking me, but
it was a calling.
I have to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Before you go, Claire, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
I guess, I know, again, this is a bit cliche, but please stop being so hard on yourself, especially for women. It's like you are expending so much precious energy beating yourself up over whatever it is. A lot of us, it's about our like weight, our bodies. Think about what you could do with that energy. If, how much more you could give back to the world, how much, you'd be so much more productive. So and obviously you'd be happier. But that was a big turning point for me, is like looking at all the kind of like anger and judgment that I had towards myself and realizing the amount of time that was taking and the exhaustion that was happening and how much more I could do with my life if I just stopped it. Again, therapy helped. So really take a look at how you're beating yourself up, and just, you're going to do a lot better for the world if you try to let some of that go.
Excellent. Claire, thank you so much. Hold on just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Claire. Claire, thank you so much. To find out more about Claire, about Ladies Get Paid, and about all the events that they have coming up over the next few months, it sounds like they got a lot going on, which is a great thing. Go to supportissexypodcast.com and just search Claire, CLAIRE. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the links, resources, ways to get in touch with Ladies Get Paid, ways to follow them, sign up for their newsletter, and find out everything that they're up to, plus the great resources that Claire mentioned in this episode. Supportissexypodcast.com. Go to the search icon at the top and just type Claire. Thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would leave us a review. I always say a 5-star review would be so appreciated, but any feedback is welcome. Please take 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, might not even take you that long. Pop on over, write us a review. And while you're at it, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Got a lot of great stuff coming up. As you heard, Claire gave us a lot of great stuff today. I'm so excited about the women that I'm talking to and connecting with all around the world. I want to make sure you don't miss a thing. So make sure you subscribe to Support Is Sexy podcast as well. All right. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for telling your friends. People email me and tell me a friend told them. I'm excited about it. I'm happy you're excited about it. It would not be the same without you. All right, so now you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.